We do have a pre-submitted question.
Yeah, if you can just dump that in the chat, that'd be great. Hey, welcome everybody to Tuesday's Lunch and Learn. You got Bill here. You can see you can see this slide presentation, right? Caitlin? Okay, so we got a question from, I believe, from Leah Turner. Which is...
Hey there.
Hey, Leah, how are you?
Good, how are you guys?
You have the question about rerunning a rule?
Yeah, so essentially we're wanting to try, when we had our proof of concept with you guys, we learned that it was possible to do some modeling with historical, maybe historical data. And so what we're looking to do is see if there's a way or get maybe some tips on how to, if it's possible to compare outcomes, like say we changed a rule in a flow to compare basically outcomes that would be dependent on the rule change. So I gave an example, say 75% of requests that came in through the regular flow got approved. If we change a certain aspect of that, now we would like to see, would 80% go through? Would 60% get approved? So just wanted to see some thoughts around that.
Now, in your current flow, is it actually like a series of flow steps in a flow that gets called? And like the flow is the main piece of logic and there's rule steps inside of it?
Yes, that's how it is now. And it's got truth table in there and just different steps after the truth table. So basically, an example is we do prior auths for home health. And so if I'm coming in, I'm asking for 5 nursing visits and 3 physical therapy visits. It goes through a truth table that kind of matches me up to my rule. Then it pulls in some information later on in the process about how many visits have been previously approved, et cetera. So the idea would be if we replace some of the rules in the truth table with maybe a different set of rules, like a different truth, what would happen?
And how are you tracking, does this flow have forms in it or is it completely synchronous?
No, it's completely synchronous.
Okay. And how are you saving off the data that you passed into the rule or into the flow? Are you saving it off in any way?
Right now, I don't think we are. So I don't think you could set up a step there at the beginning of the flow to save that data.
Right. So like, how does that flow get called? Like, is it an API that gets called from the system today?
Yes, API call.
And so would you have any way to get the previous data set that's been passed into that rule, between it going into production and now?
Yes, I think we can. We do some logging on, so we know kind of like what's going in, but not, that's captured, I guess, before it goes into decisions.
There's nothing like pre-built that's going to do this for you. Like you could just go configure something or set something to true. It's more that it's possible to do. Like you could copy your flow, right? You could make your change and then contrive a way to rerun everything and look at your outcome percentages. But it's more of like a design question. Like, hey, where's the data at? How do you copy a flow? Or what's the relationship to a copied flow to the existing flow? And how do you read the old data in and then capture the actual outcomes, the changes of it, as opposed to like something that says like, rerun rerun all prior executions against a updated model or something like that.
Yeah, so basically recreate the flow, kind of like we have it now, make the changes in that new flow, and then run the historical data, I guess, through the new flow.
Basically, but like, so like, how do you know? I mean, I'm sure the numbers you're saying are like literally true, but like,
Yeah.
where is it? How do you know the pass percentage today? Like, where does that data live at?
We don't necessarily know the pass percentage. That was just simplified. We do know, like an offer, we know what offers are made. So decisions will say, oh, for this request, suggest total approval. For this request, suggest a partial approval. And then on the system side, they accept or reject that. So we basically know the response from decision. So I guess we'd essentially be comparing the response from decisions.
So probably what I'd say is, so there's some simple changes you could do to make this easier.
Okay.
Going forward, right? Now, like, what's the volume of requests that go to this flow today, roughly?
I would say probably maybe 10,000 a day.
Okay. So we got 10,000 requests a day. Now, so what you could do is create a data structure to capture the actual inputs, assuming they're not sensitive information.
Right, it's not.
So like basically the first step in the flow might be to, this flow, if you're calling an API, has like a series of inputs, either independent or like an object that you created. And so you could save those off into like a simple data structure as the very first step.
Okay.
Right. And then you could, at the end of that flow, you would save off the results. If it's either the actual results if it's like some sort of data, or like the true or false result. So you would know this, and then you probably also want to pass in some kind of identifying information that you'd have to contrive, like you just do it yourself.
Authorization number or something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or like to just know what version of the flow you're working on, because the flow doesn't really have a version, right? Okay. So like when you edit the flow and you change it from a truth table to a rule or vice versa or whatever, the flow doesn't keep a numbering scheme that you could point at, right? You would just kind of have to contrive this in a way. But if you were to save that data, right, and create this data set, and then what you could then do is it would be pretty easy to copy your flow, right? The actual main flow. Now, right. with a normal copy, it's only one level deep, so it won't copy all of the subflows. But if you do need that behavior, we have a copy designer folder action that should allow you to copy everything.
Okay.
Which is something to consider, like depending on what level of that you need.
Yeah.
And then what you would do is basically you would build a flow, and you would build like a handler flow that could fetch all the data. Like like this stuff, these records, these 10,000 records ran against version 1.0, and and then it came out as true or false. Like you'd have a data set in the database that would tell you that information. And then you could theoretically build a flow that could fetch all those records, run them through, and you could see if their outcome changed. Thank you. If their outcome changed at all.
Okay.
And then that way you could say, all right, well, and then you could just continuously do that. And you could set that up to be, there's probably a lot involved here. So this is probably about like depending on the criticality or the importance of this conversation, this is a perfect thing for I'm hoping your customer success manager. If not, I can figure out who they are. But for us to take up through like the CS channel and have like some calls about. But okay. There's no reason to think that you couldn't, like say you could build this, or you could bring your data back from prod to test, right? You could run these rules against test as you import versions of your flow onto test.
Right.
And then you could validate that you see an increase, no change, an increase or a decrease in like pass percentages.
Mhm.
And then you could make that part of your code promotion process. That's all very possible to do. And you could, with a little bit of work, you could schedule it out or get nightly reports or do something to make it very easy to run that type of regression analysis or whatever the right term for that might be.
Mhm.
But it all is just like, it's kind of falls into the category of like normal design work. It's not something the application just can do for you.
Okay.
In any kind of like pre-built way, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about that particular topic I can?
No, I don't think so.
Help you with?
I kind of in general, if it's possible and like how we could get started in that direction. So.
Yeah, and so I'll ask your customer success manager to reach out and just see if you have any other questions about that as you have a chance to kind of digest that a bit, because there's a lot there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So go ahead and we have another question here. And I'm sorry for everyone that didn't understand the question in the chat, but current rule or flow approves 75% of requests that come through. How would this percentage change if an existing rule was tweaked using historical data? That was the question that Leah and I were just kind of brainstorming together. Here's another question. How to get the group member email address from decisions. The group was generated by the admin and some accounts are assigned to the group. How to get the group? Is this from a named person, Caitlin, or is this from anonymous?
This one is from James Dang at Flexity.
How to get the group member email address from the decisions group. Okay, I think the question is, how do I get a list of users in a group? I think that's how I'm going to rephrase that question. That user's not here. You should be able to use group service to get all accounts for group. Let me see here really quick. Let me confirm that my thinking there is correct. So let's go to integration, internal services, group service, get accounts for group. So this takes in the group ID, and you can get the group ID. Go to system security, go to groups, and here's administrators, and we can right click and go to manage, get group ID. Then we could put that in the group ID. Okay, and that should give us 2 objects that come out of that step, 2 items, and each of which is an account. And so what you could do is just to get the email addresses is we built like a string list here, garbage name. We can then say, select from flow, get accounts, all email address. And then that should give us all. Now we should have just the email addresses from that group. And so if you wanted to then do that, tie that together also, you don't have the group ID, but you have the group name. You might do something like this, use a fetch entity step, set its type to group, add a fetch criteria for entity name equals, and in here you could put in your entity, your group name, which would be administrators. And then here, we'll go and show path for one result to make this easier. And then we can pass in the group ID from the entity result dot group ID. We run that, should get the same results, which would be those two members, either by name or by the ID of that particular group in decisions. So I think this is what the user is asking. But it would be great too, since that person didn't join, if once we get the video uploaded, if we do we email them with like a timestamp of the answer to their question and a link to the recording today? Is that something we do, or am I just imagining?
I've done it previously. It's not, I don't think that it's ever been written down anywhere, but I can start doing that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and try that. We might be able to drive some more traction, at least in terms of getting questions answered for people.
For sure.
Okay. All right. What other questions do we have today? Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here. Just let me know if there's any questions, everyone. I muck around with this dynamic questionnaire project, pet project of mine that I've been working on. failing. Yeah, it is. Okay, I think that's everything for today. Appreciate everyone's questions. And tomorrow you have got, oh, good Lord. You've got Dylan Roberts, and then Thursday you've got Akshay. And just a reminder that we've got in-person training next week at WHQ. So if anyone's nearby or wants any more information, please reach out to myself or Caitlin, and we can get you that information. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Phil. Everybody have a good one.